for you, just growing up, I know you've probably gone through things where you're comparing yourself, and I know you're competitive yourself. How have you dealt with that type of situation? Like you comparing yourself to somebody, or in your practice today,
Mhm,
has that come up for you, and how have you dealt with it?
mhm. Yes, I am very competitive, and as I've done my work, and also understanding too that there's deeper layers that I get to still peel back behind it. But as part of the journey of my own competitiveness, I understand the source of the reasons why I was competitive was because it was a survival tactic for me. I got picked on a lot, so I had to be faster, funnier, quicker in sports. That was my way of surviving. And as I dig deeper into that, realizing like, oh wow, these people are starting to dictate. My competitiveness was dictated by how I thought they perceived me or how they treated me. So as a survival tactic, I would try to be even more competitive and try to beat them into ground to pound my chest like, oh, what
Yeah.
you want some of this,
Yeah.
whatever attitude. So when I started understanding, oh, I was actually giving my power away and I was allowing them to dictate who I was because they would get a rise out of me and I would act a certain way. When I started to reevaluate that, then I started to try to take my power back. And it's like, okay, if part of my well-being is to have a little bit more ease, flow, and grace, I get to take my power back, and I'm not going to allow externals to get a rise out of me to be competitive. I'll only be competitive in the containers that I choose to be, um, and how I want to proceed. Again, competitiveness is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just understanding the containers. So I've been able to be in practice in that, and when someone's trying to goad me, like it's like, I'll think to myself, this guy's trying to take my power away right now.
Mm.
It's not gonna. I'm not gonna allow that to happen because then I'm gonna be operating from an inflamed ego. I'd rather my mission is to operate from my higher self. So even in the littlest moments when that competitive nature or that competitive alarm starts to go off, then the
Yeah.
practice for me is to check in on that. It's like, okay, what's happening here? Am I giving my power away? What is it that I'm feeling? Down regulate my heart rate. It's like, okay, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
Operate from my higher self. That's how I've been able to navigate my competitiveness. Because I was really competitive. I
Mhm.
was really competitive, and it leaked into other parts of my life, just in conversation. Like I would fight for my fight to be right, even when I was wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I, mean,
Um,
I can see where that would harm somebody in a relationship.
any
Right.
relationship,
Now
yeah.
now you're competitive in a relationship. I've
Mm-hmm,
seen that a lot, and it
mm-hmm,
just destroys
mm-hmm.
relationships unless they're all,
Yeah,
unless they like that kind of stuff. They're
yeah, well,
competitive with each
yeah.
other.
And then
It's like,
that's a whole nother coaching thing. That's a whole
yeah.
nother coaching thing.
But do you find that it was about being accepted and wanting to be accepted into certain groups, or
Yeah,
um
it was all that. It was acceptance. It was an inflamed ego in the sense of protecting myself. Like no one's
mm,
going to pick on me. If I'm one of the best jocks out there, then I'm going to get respect. Like
yeah,
all
yeah,
that played into that,
yeah,
and getting a deeper understanding of where that was coming from for myself as I progressed years into my personal development. Like that was a huge relief. It's like, oh God, I don't have to be tense all the time, trying to prove myself all the time. Like that's not sustainable because I'm always like stressed out. Like, oh, I got to be better than everybody.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's part of that's a huge thing for people of color too. You know what I mean? Like we always there's this thing where we feel like we have to be twice
yeah,
as good at
yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah.
Some three times as good, four times as good.
Just to add to that, I think that's you're right and very true by saying that, because I was
Mm-hmm,
bullied when I was a kid,
mm-hmm,
and most of the time was about not how small I was, it was about the color of my skin.
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm,
know, I'm
mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, that's the difference.
Yeah.
You're a guy same height, you may be stronger than me, but you're gonna
Right.
pick on my color. you
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah.
you know?
And
So
that all played into the competitiveness. At least for me, it played into the
yeah,
competitiveness. You
I
know what I
think
mean?
we're pretty much in the same route because I same root of that because
Mhm.
I felt like, oh, if I could play sports like them, they won't pick on me as
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
So that was probably like
Mhm.
something I did for
Mhm.
myself,
Mhm.
being that competitive. Like,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
you know, you're gonna stop picking on me. I'm gonna try to be better than you, and
Right.
then you're gonna earn my respect.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, whether or not it was because you're calling me something racist or whatever. It's like, well,
Right.
I'm gonna
Right.
compete against you. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm gonna bury that in your face right now.
yeah. Maybe that was the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
unpeeling the onion.
Yeah. No, for sure. And not to say that that competitiveness was not bad in the sense of like, man, I found in my competitiveness in playing sports, like I love playing sports. Like I
Yeah,
love playing sports. I loved running. I loved trying to evade people and just have mastery of my body in whatever sport that I was playing. Like I really enjoyed all that. That competitiveness was great in that sense.
yeah,
And again, based, like what we're sharing here with everybody else is just a different lens and a different way to approach how we view things.
yeah,
In this case, like our competitiveness or comparing, and if we're able to take a look at something like that as we hold it and look at it
yeah,
from a different place and hold it differently, that kind of this is the work, this is the practice, being able to look at things from a different way, being able to hold things a different way, so that we can think or say or do things differently, because you have more information, you have a better in some cases a better way to take a look at an obstacle or a
yeah.
challenge or an emotional block, and that's part of what we do is to help people get unblocked. Helpful
You,
for you then? Helpful.
you know what's interesting, man? You know,
Mm,
I know we talk about ego and all that stuff.
mm-hmm,
Like I prepare myself when we talk about this because I feel like I'm being, put in this position where I got to open myself up and peel my
mm-hmm,
layers
mm-hmm.
of whatever's underneath me, right? And
Yeah.
being vulnerable in front of the world or
Yes.
whoever's
Yes.
listening to our podcast,
and
right?
and, and bro,
And
like
oh, I just want before I
mhm,
forget,
mhm,
you do attack my ego. I just want to let you know that the fear kicks in. It's
mhm,
like, oh, no,
mhm,
I don't feel that way. You know what I
mhm,
mean? But I
mhm,
understand that what we're in a container
mhm,
ourselves and we're trying to
mhm.
work things out.
Right.
Right. That's why I was asking you like how you felt about that and how
Right.
I felt about that.
Mhm,
And when now I know like, oh, if you attack my being, of course
mhm,
I'm gonna like try to stop you and like, no, 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 I don't want to go down that rabbit hole with
mhm,
you. You know what I
mhm.
mean? And I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you go through
Right.
that a lot with people.
Couple things. One, you get to acknowledge, yes, bro, it takes fucking huge courage to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable on a podcast and share your story is even takes even more courage. So I get to acknowledge you about that, and I know that you sharing your story, there's a lot of people out there that will gain value in that as well,
Yeah.
because you took the steps, to the courage to actually put yourself out there. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Oh yeah.
um and yes, what you're experiencing about in the coaching process, the dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of touch on that, get that all the time, and sometimes with the sentiment that you express, like you were being attacked, that you felt like I was attacking
Yeah.
your
When you're
ego,
just
right?
asking a question. Yeah.
Exactly. Now all I'm doing is just asking
Yeah.
questions, right? Like,
I'm like,
and
wait a sec. I don't like that question.
yeah, no, and bro, that is great insight.
Yeah.
Like, like being able to be aware of that's how you react in that situation, because
Yeah.
I can relate exactly to that when I'm going through my coaching process. Like I'm my ego gets a little turned up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even when
Yeah.
I'm in practice about, okay, bro, you're listening to your higher self. Yeah, but my fucking ego's get fucking just getting butt hurt right now, and this person doesn't,
Yeah.
you know.
And you're talking about even for yourself in your practice and you're helping somebody get through whatever they're getting through.
Mhm.
You're saying your ego kicks in like you know better, so you should listen to me.
No.
Kind of like,
I'm talking about when I'm being coached.
yeah. Oh, when you're
Like
being coached.
when
Okay.
I'm being
Yeah. Yeah.
coached, like someone will ask, just asking
Yeah.
questions,
Just
and I'm
asking a
like,
question.
why the
Yeah.
fuck are you asking my question like
Oh,
that?
damn,
You
you're
don't
too
fucking know.
sensitive, man. Yeah. You're too sensitive,
Exactly.
bro.
Exactly, bro. Like that's real shit that comes up
Yeah.
even
Chill. Chill. Yeah.
yeah,
Chill.
it comes up like and that's even when I'm in practice, like that still comes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but because we are in practice now, we know that there's another way, we know what to listen for and how and make different choices on that.
Yeah.
So again, like bravery, thank you, acknowledgement for being vulnerable, because it's a huge thing. And know too that in your vulnerability there is power, and two, that it's also someone else's story. It may be
Yeah.
different circumstances, but the same
Yeah.
story, and people will get value out of that. I get value out of it. You know what I mean? So
just talking through that, something came up in my head where as a kid we were told not to cry. Like, don't cry in front of anybody, or just don't be a crybaby, or whatever male macho thing your father would say to you, or anybody would say to you, your older brother, or maybe even your older sister telling you, don't cry. You don't cry. There's no crying in baseball.
Right.
Is that
right.
Tom Hanks?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be another podcast where we talk about this, where allowing yourself to cry as a man or even a woman, but in this day and age, it's about being a man and being macho, and you can't show your vulnerability. But then it's funny because when you do see it in sports, where they win the championship and they show them crying. And what is that? My dad told me I can't cry, but he's crying.
Right.
So there's like a conflict in your, like, what is that?
Yeah, that's a total another conversation for sure, especially because it's so prevalent in our culture, in the Filipino community. Like
yes.
That's something that has depth that we can go really far into. Seeing what vulnerability looks like amongst men, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I've been able to see a lot more of that, and that's great. I really feel like there's a feminine energy. We all have masculine and feminine energies, and I really feel like the rising is of the feminine energy right now, and men need to start fucking paying attention to their feminine side, because the masculinity side of our energies collectively is fucking this whole place up.
Are you talking about the war that's going on right now?
Man, I'm talking about every goddamn thing that man has put his finger on.
It could be the Lamborghini on social media that you see, right?
Exactly.
Read all these books.
Exactly.
Look at the car I have.
Yeah. We won't throw that guy under the bus.
There's a lot of those guys under the bus.
There's a lot of those guys. But to bring it to a wrap, like, I think us being able to have these types of conversations, we are able to dive more into vulnerable situations and sharing our experiences in that. It's a great way to get practice in the framework and in the tools. So doing the deeper work in that and understanding that is at least get you on the right path to start to look at things differently as you hold it now, because you're right. It's not the more competitive and the more you compare yourself to other people, the more you lose yourself, you lose your power, you lose your identity, because you're no longer living for yourself. You're living based on what expectations that you're trying to place on yourself or others, or expectations people are placing on you. So you get to decide, whose life am I going to live? Am I going to stand in my power and live my own shit and do my work, or am I going to sit here and compare myself to other people and live my life that way? Which sounds healthier to you? Which sounds better to you? Which sounds more appealing? That's ultimately what we get to do in this work, is provide different ways of how we look at things.
What's interesting is I'm pretty sure about the same age. We grew up wanting to be like Mike, and for those who don't know, be like Michael Jordan. You know how difficult that is?
Yeah.
Right? There's only one Michael Jordan.
no amount of Jordan shoes is ever gonna make me play like Michael Jordan.
Oh, thank you for peeling back the onion,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you for revealing my ego.
I mean, I didn't necessarily reveal it. You,
No, I revealed it for myself. Thank you.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah, and that's the work, and that's great, and that's commendable. So thank you for that.
All right. Before we go, you got to give me a quote.
Those who say they can and those who say they can't are both right. Thank you for being here, ladies and
All
gentlemen.
right, man. Thank you. Thanks for unpeeling my onion.
Yeah, there you go. That's the quote. That's the quote.
Thanks for unpeeling my onion.
Yeah.
Ray.
There you go. Hoo dang.